You're tuned into RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is Joe Zamataro and Matt Gannon. Guys, welcome back to the show. And you're not going to believe this. We have a signing for the official start of the offseason. A Lightning player is signed. No, it's not the one player that you're all hoping that it's going to be, but it is a great signing nonetheless that we will get into and have some fun with to talk about. We're doing some player grades as well today. Continuing that series, should be an action-packed, really fun episode as well. But first and foremost, how you guys doing today?
Doing great. And, last episode was a lot of fun. This episode,
I didn't want to hear what he just ditched.
Yeah. You didn't want to hear about my day? As soon as it's about me, you're like, peace, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the show good, so I don't have any white noise in the background, Joe. I'm sorry I missed it. Was your day well?
I started cooking some chili around noon, so as soon as this podcast is over, I can't freaking wait to, let that thing that's been slow simmering all day, enjoy some of that. That's the highlight of my day. Is that sad?
No, I'm always down for a good chili, so I'll be there after the show.
Sounds good.
No, it's been a wonderful week. The weather's starting to get real hot. I'm starting to thrive. I'm a little sunburnt today. Really taking in this long off season that we have headed for us, but I guess we got plenty of content to get us all through it and ready for the next season.
Can I throw one quick thing out there, though? We can all at least celebrate a little bit that the Boston Bruins have been eliminated from the playoffs. And I just want everybody to take a look real quick at Jake, because why are you so happy or unhappy that the Bruins? I mean, you should even though you wanted the Panthers to be eliminated first, the Bruins are out. Be happy about that, bud.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't make me feel any better, though. I'm still salty about the whole thing, and I still don't like that. Listen, you guys know this. We talked about this in the one episode. I want the Panthers to lose. I am very bitter and petty, and I'm full on. I want them to lose. And even when the Panthers do lose, it doesn't make me feel any better. I
wasn't talking about the Panthers.
I know, but I'm saying even when the Panthers do get eliminated, I'm still not going to be overly excited. It's a very little tiny consolation prize that it's like, oh well, whatever. Listen. It's the
Keep the cup in the South. All right, keep the cup in the South. I want Carolina to win. That way there would have been a better chance that, if it's going to be Florida, if it's going to be Carolina, hopefully it might be Dallas. Keep the cup in the South and away from those Northerners.
And the way that I'm looking at it, too, is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I don't like the Florida Panthers. I don't like Boston. Not that I was cheering for the Panthers, but I'm glad that they won against Boston because they're going to mop the Rangers. I'm not a big Rangers guy. I think Boston, they're a bit of frauds. They got to play Toronto, lucky them. And so Carolina couldn't get it done against the Rangers, even though I thought they were the better team through, if not all 6 games. I think the Panthers are going to mop the floor with them. I don't think a cup is in their future, but at least the Rangers won't be making it to the final.
I know we have a lot of bold stuff to cover, but I mean, can we just for a moment appreciate what a third period Kreider had to single-handedly pull the Rangers up in like a natural hat trick for, to initiate the handshake line? That was a heck of a performance, man.
Okay, you're going to get mad at me. I didn't even see it. I wasn't even watching the game, so I don't even know what I knew. I knew there was a big performance for the Rangers to come back, but actually, to be fair, I was working during that game, so that's more of the reason why I missed it. But I haven't been watching a ton of playoff hockey just because, I'm a Bolt-centric guy, and so. But what I don't know. What was it? Was it that good of a performance?
It was a really good game by Kreider. I hate to say it. I'm not the biggest Chris Kreider fan. I'm not a Chris Kreider hater, but it was a really good game. I'm a big, Canes fan. So it really sucked to see, especially because I tuned in, when it was 3-1 and then it just went downhill as soon as I turned the game on. Yeah, that third period, it was rough, but
I think the
it
Canes were up
was
3-1, right?
yeah, a decent collapse there.
Yeah, and then Kreider gets into the dirty areas, and he got initially a deflection that went in. He got a what was the next one that he had? Was that the rebound? And then the final one was actually a pass across. Either way, he
Yeah.
was right in the crease for all of them. It worked really hard to get him, and so now we know it's going to be Florida and the Rangers.
Doesn't
Yeah.
get any easier for me and who I want to win in these series. I just don't. I'm not enjoying the East series right now. I like the West a lot better. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I'll take anybody in the West right now.
It's hopefully there's some good hockey at the very least. No matter what happens, we can enjoy that. Let's get into the Bolts content though that we've got today, because we do have a lot to talk about. We've got one player that's signed. We'll get into here in just a little bit. But continuing our player grade series today, we got 3 new players. We'll be talking about Brayden Point, Eric Cernak, and Mitchell Chaffee. I thought we should start off with Brayden Point though. Obviously, Nikita Kucherov was the one who took the center stage, if you will, and was the star of the entire season, broke all the records, was the highest points guy. He was Nikita Kucherov. But Brayden Point, not to be outdone, had a very good, I would say almost quietly good season. He kind of flew under the radar for a little bit. For a guy that scored 50 goals last year, he almost got there again, finishing with 46 on the year this year. Listen, he was still very impressive and made a lot of big plays, a little bit of in a different way, I would say. But guys, how did you feel about Brayden Point this year?
Well, Point really started off the season slow, and I'd love to have been able to pull up the stats from the first half of the season versus the second, but I'm not that savvy when it comes to referencing things that quickly. But he started off the season slow to the point that where was that 50 goal score is what we all kept asking ourselves. We didn't see it, and it seemed like Kucherov really started taking off because Kuch was pulling the trigger a lot more on the power play specifically, but all over the ice and scoring goals at a pretty fast clip. And then probably about, I don't know, would you say like around the time Vasilevsky came back, I suppose, Pointer started getting really hot and was scoring regularly. He had a couple of big stints where he was scoring. He had like a goal scoring streak that I think it was like 6-7 games that he had twice. So he was consistently in there, and he started playing really, really well for the second half of the season. Enough so that, looking at his stats, this is his 3rd top season in terms of points. I mean, he really did turn it all around.
So this is only his 3rd best season for points. I was really expecting it to be 2nd.
18-19 was 92 points, where he had 41 goals, 51 assists. Last year was 95 points, where he had his 51 goals, 44 assists. And this year he finished at 90 with 46 and 44.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely wasn't as good of a season as last year. It's hard to top 50 goals. It's hard to, get there twice, especially in consecutive years, but it doesn't mean he had a bad season by any stretch. Yeah, he did have a bit of, I'm not going to call it a slow start, but a quiet start. Seemed like him and Kucherov decided to switch places, switch roles in the first half of the season. And like you did say, Joe, about the time when Vasilevsky came back is when they got to each of their respective roles. Seems like Brayden Point was making plays. He was getting a lot of assists early in the season. The goals weren't quite coming his way. And yet Kucherov, he was the guy that was pulling the trigger. He was shooting the puck, and he was scoring at will early in the season. And then, yeah, Vasilevsky comes along and things start to stabilize, start to even out. It wasn't like Brayden Point was a goal scoring machine from then on. Really the later part of the season, let's say the last 2 months of the season, is when it really seemed like he was just piling the goals on. But again, just no slouch of a season at all from Brayden Point, but it does seem like he took a bit of a step back just because he can't match 50 goals again in consecutive years.
I mean, it wasn't too far off. 5 goals. It's about 10% higher, and he would have been right there. He also, let's see, he took, of those, only 15 were power play goals, which, he had 20 power play goals the season prior. So he can't be, we talked about this quite a bit about the term of power play merchant. He really doesn't fit the bill for that because less than a third of his goals were on the power play.
I think a big reason for the quote unquote slower start for Brayden Point was partially due to a lot of teams. Listen, last year, Point and Kucherov were magical, right? Where Point was in the slot all the time. Kucherov would either do that, he'd shoot the puck or do that fake shot pass right to Point, who was sitting in the slot. And I think teams started to clamp down on that a little bit and took away Point as much as they could from that slot position. And it wasn't until he started moving around a lot more that he was able to start scoring a lot more goals. I think that was a big reason why he got off to it really wasn't even a slow start, to be honest with you. You look at the splits. I mean, his first half versus second half is very similar, at least when it comes to points, 48 in the second half, 42 in the first half. But the biggest difference is the goals versus the assists. Like you mentioned, Matt, he had more assists in the first half of the season than he did in the second half of the season. And again, I think that's largely because they tried to shut down that slot option for him. And it wasn't until, and Brian said this on multiple broadcasts, Brian Engblom, that Point needs to start moving around because he was so used to last year just kind of being able to sit in that slot and then tap the puck home, which is what he did so well. Had to change that up a little bit this year.
Yep, I mean that's definitely something that you saw more with the way that Kucherov was. I mean, 'cause let's face it, Kucherov is the quarterback of the power play. He wasn't passing to Pointer as much, but it did open up other opportunities, such as for Kucherov to actually take the shot. And we did see them start to adjust. I think it was against Florida in the playoffs was one of the big times where the power play started to be more dynamic instead of so static. And everything has to evolve, right? Once the Lightning have a really good power play, one of the best all time, teams are going to make adjustments in order to try to find strategies that counteract that. And we'll see what next season comes because I think teams are going to really watch a lot of film with the way Tampa was, and Point's not going to be. I mean, maybe even being in that bumper position is a good spot because you basically have to have somebody dedicated to defend you, and it opens up the rest of the ice. But that's you're sacrificing a really good goal scorer there to be in that spot. It's one of the nice chess-like pieces with the way hockey is.
And I wonder if, how good of a season Brayden Point had, especially on the power play last year, played a factor into how good of a season Kucherov had this year, especially on the power play, because they're, instead of having, one guy or half a guy guarding Brayden Point in the slot, it seemed like he had two guys stapled to him at all times to prevent that slot shot or even, just that cross ice pass to get to Brayden Point. So I wonder if that opened up a little bit more space for Kucherov and let him do his thing a little bit more, getting it around to Hedman, Stamkos, obviously, and Paul, behind the goal or something like that. So I feel like that may have played a factor into it as well, but still,
He had more power play points this season than last. He had 30 power play points last season with 20 goals and 32 power play points this season with 15 goals.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, it didn't feel like it though, right?
No, it definitely different vibes this season on the power play, at least.
I think Matt, you bring up a good point, and I think there's something to that. I don't think you're crazy for saying that at all. And listen, I think again, a large part of the reason it felt so different is just because it was an assist more run for him early in the season, and then the goals started coming late. I think that was the biggest difference for him. Last year we saw him scoring what felt like every day. This was a little bit different from the start of the year to the end of the year, but at the end of the day, he still finishes with 46 goals and was right up there with the top of the Lightning players when it comes to points. He was an excellent player. And anytime you can somehow quietly have a near 50 goal season, that is amazing. And Brayden Point still did what he does best. And the good news for the Lightning is they've got him for a very long time to come. And I'm sure Point will make the necessary adjustments, when it comes to next year and what he has to do, because that's the game of hockey. People start to adjust to the way you're playing, and you try to find ways to counteract that. Let's go with some favorite Brayden Point moments, because I think there was plenty of big ones in this that we can pick out some of our favorites from Brayden Point. Joe, I know you've got some ready to go, so I'll start with you. Favorite Brayden Point moment from this year?
I'd say my favorite one, and I can't remember the team now, and I'm ashamed of that part. But it was a play where it was breaking out of the defensive zone. Perbix touched the puck first. He went across the ice, parallel to him, to Hedman, who found Kucherov on the other side of the ice at the opposing blue line. Kucherov touches the puck, one touch to Hagel, who basically just flicks it right back to Kucherov, who's in full speed. And Kucherov finds Brayden Point backdoor for a one-timer. I love this play because all 5 guys got involved. Kuch made some really quick decision-making, as did Hagel, and Brayden Point did what Brayden Point does best. He sped as hard as he could from the blue line straight to the net and buried a puck that Kuch got him on the right just before the crease. One-timed it. It was a nice goal, and everyone got involved in that one.
I know exactly which play you're talking about, and I can't help you figure out which team it was against. But I remember talking about it on this show and saying, it sucks that you can't, put 4 assists on a goal, because you're right. Everybody was involved. Everybody was, an equal part of that goal. So it does suck. I want you to figure out who that was against, if you could find the goal or something, because I want to see it again. But not necessarily a specific moment, but I guess, an entire game. Brayden Point's 6-point night against San Jose late in the season. It was just, utter domination from the Lightning. I think Kucherov had 5 points that night. Brayden Point, I can't remember if he had 3 and 3 or 4 and 2. I remember he had a hat trick at the very least. But it was just a dominant performance from Brayden Point, and just everybody in that game was clicking, but Brayden Point especially was just on another level that entire game. And you guys thought I was done. I know it's been a couple of weeks since I brought it up, but boy, that game helped my fantasy team out so much. Woohoo! But I had to put that in there.
Always got to sneak in the fantasy team. It's great. Matt, I think it was 3 and 3 from that year, because I know the Lightning record for most goals in a game is 4, and to my knowledge, I think it's still Chris Kontos is the one that has that record
in the first ever game.
Yeah, wild stats from franchise. So those are fun trivia questions. So maybe one day we'll have to do we'll get Michael. Well, no, actually, I don't want to do a trivia against Michael because he's just going to dominate the whole thing. Anyway, my favorite Brayden Point moment, might maybe seem like a weird one. It was against Philadelphia. Just a regular power play goal that they scored. It was when they were wearing their new black jerseys. The reason it's my favorite Brayden Point moment, because that was right when he sent John Tortorella into an absolute madness. And we got the all-time moment of him in the stare down and just being fed up with that game because his team was getting their butt kicked. And I attribute that to Brayden Point's great power play goal after Tortorella was already upset about the call in the first place. So that was my favorite Brayden Point moment. I know that may be cheating a little bit.
No.
But I got a kick out of that.
I'll allow that. That's actually it's a unique moment, Jake. So I actually really do like that answer.
I had to pick a unique one, so I didn't want to have the same thing as one of you guys. I thought that was fun though. That's one of my favorite moments from this season, with John Tortorella just in his stare down with the officials.
Yeah, I mean that was classic Tortorella too, right? But it was Arizona for that 5-player goal for Point. There's one other good one that I remember too, and it was against the Rangers, where Point was in. I don't know if it might not be the same one that you're thinking.
I know it is.
All right, so he was in front of the net. He was being given the business. He had to fight for position. He ended up getting the puck right in the crease and fired it backhand. It hit the post and it went out. It did not go in. But Cooch gathered up the rebound in the corner and fired it right to Point's stick when and then he put it on that second attempt. And the reason I like that is because he was fighting so hard, and he's not a huge guy in order to get position. So he was able to not only almost score the first time, but stick in there and bury it the second.
So it's not the one that I was thinking of. So forgive my my confidence, but there was another goal against the Rangers. I think it was Eric Gustafson that was he was hounding him. Brayden Point. He was alone to the side of the net. He was like almost the bottom of the faceoff circle, I guess. And he was being hounded by Eric Gustafson, and he was just kind of looking for a pass option, looking towards Vasilevsky, and then just cuts hard, dangles out Shesterkin, and pots it home. It was a beautiful, beautiful goal. So I thought that's the one that you were going to reference, but it was one of my favorite Brayden Point goals from this season.
When we get deeper into the offseason, we might have to do a show where we just do favorite moments against a certain team. That could be a lot of fun going through some of those, because there's definitely some moments against teams that I think
Are we going to be that channel that has just reaction videos? We just watch like all the highlights and the previews, just us going.
Whoa. Open mouth. No, listen, as much as I'd love to do that too, unfortunately YouTube would try to kick us out if we try to do something like that. But by the way, we're also doing this show live again here on all these social media platforms. So if you're joining us live, thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're new here, welcome. We hope we have a fun show planned for you today. If you're returning, thank you guys for coming back again. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button too as well, so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. You don't miss out when we're going live. You can follow us at RBLR Lightning or at RBLR Sports to get all the information on that fun stuff. And check out all the other amazing shows that we have as well for the Rays, the Bucks, the Rowdies, you name it. RBLR is here and got you covered with Tampa Bay sports. All right, let's go player grade now for Brayden Point. I think this is an easy one. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, because Joe, Mr. Harsh over there, is probably going to give Point like some crazy low grade. But I'll kick us off here. Brayden Point, I'm giving him an A. I thought he was great this year. He got very close to hitting 50 goals again. That's such a huge mark. And even though it kind of gets a little overshadowed by what Nikita Kucherov did, still insanely impressive season for him. He's doing what we brought him here to do. So I give Brayden Point an A. And we'd love to hear from our viewers as well. Let us know, especially if you're here live, comment down below. We'll take a look at your comment too. Let us know your grade for Brayden Point.
And maybe even a Brayden Point moment as well that we may have skipped over.
Yeah, if you got one, absolutely. Throw it.
So who wants to start?
Go.
Okay. I guess Jake already started. I'm going to go A-. Again, Brayden Point, just a fantastic player. I said all the good things just a moment ago, but it felt like he took a bit of a step back defensively this year. It seemed like he was on the ice for a lot of goals against, especially in the later half of the season. He has great, he's a great back checker. He's one of the first skaters to get back if there's a defenseman pushing up, usually Victor Hedman. Brayden Point's going to be one of the first guys back if there's, an odd man rush the other way. And he's going to be the best guy to try and catch somebody. I mean, he is just wheels. But it seemed like he only put that effort in for 190 feet. It seemed like once he got to the hash marks, in front of Vasilevsky or Johansson or Tompkins, whoever it was, he stopped. And I get it. You're not supposed to be, the guy boxing people out in front of the net. You're not the defenseman. But it seemed like that's where the effort stopped. Not even just, being out of position and you're covering for your defenseman, but just in front of the net. It seemed like he got caught puck watching a little bit. Not necessarily a bad thing. It wasn't such a habit, but it is, I guess it was enough of a habit for me to be bringing it up. There's no real specific examples that I can bring up right now, but it just was a theme that I did notice. Other than that, it seemed like he was a fantastic player. Maybe, a little weak on the faceoffs. It didn't seem like he was, a king in the circle this year, but again, just a fantastic season from him overall. If these are the two biggest gripes that I do have, that's completely worthy of an A- for me.
I like a lot of the points that you brought up. Let's, if I can remember them all. For face-off percentage, since I have the stats up, he was at 45.7%. Considering he's somebody that takes a significant number of face-offs, that should be improved. Again, going with the defensive side of things, he was a negative 16, which, I mean, that's really bad. I know it's a team sport, and everyone says, plus minus is a terrible stat, but it's not fully. I mean, it tells you something that when he's on the ice, the other team's scoring 5-on-5. I docked Cooch from an A plus to an A based on defense. So since Pointer is a center, I feel like it's certainly fair for me to do the same. He had what I did think was a slow start, and he definitely caught up in points, so he did well there defensively. I would have liked to have seen more, so I'm gonna go with where I again pushing it down just a little bit because of defense, a B plus.
Harsh Joe.
I had a feeling.
Well, again, B plus is a really good grade.
I know. I say it every time on here. I'd kill for that grade in school.
You guys both make good points about his defense, and I think you're right. I wouldn't go as far as B plus, but listen, I think defense is going to be a common theme throughout all these guys because the Lightning did have one of those weird seasons where they were just not good.
If we have an episode about coaching, those grades will be interesting to see what happens. That could be a pretty good show to have.
Joe, I got some good news with you. We already got one comment. They fully agree with you. Greg Paul says agree B plus for Brayden Point. So it's not a bad grade.
Greg Hall knows hockey.
I think
he knows puck.
46 goals. When you just score that much and do that much good offensively, I can forgive a little bit when it comes to defense. By the way, speaking of coaches, we should mention this. There is one coach that I know the reason you brought this up in the first place that is reported to maybe have some interest in being a head coach candidate. And that, of course, is Jeff Halpern. So
Jeff Blashill.
Jeff Blashill. Yes. Sorry. My apology. Blashill is a possible coaching candidate. It was for the San Jose Sharks, correct?
Correct. Yes. No,
yeah,
I think
because they can't get worse.
I don't know. Jeff will make it happen.
Joe, what are you talking about? He's the best coach ever. I mean, he's
really good. He'll help your team be better. You should hire him.
Yeah, seriously. Please,
go Sharks, go.
Don't take him away from us. How else will we keep this dynasty alive?
I saw all the Lightning fans already flooding the Sharks pages or the insiders that were tweeting that out saying, "Oh no, he's so good. We love him." Who always gets a kick out of that when
wasn't it one of the hockey players that was trying to hit on what's her name, Anna Kendricks? He said something just like hi, and that's all he put in, and then everyone's like, "Yeah, this guy saved my life." They just started completely backing him.
It was Anthony Beauvillier. Don't ask me how I know that, but
of course,
yes. That was a couple of years ago. He just quote tweeted something. He said, "Hi, I'm a hockey player," something like that.
Yeah, and then just all the fans like, "Hey, thanks, Anthony. You saved my mother the other day when she was trying to cross the street. You laid down in front of the car to make sure she didn't get ran over or whatever."
Thanks for lending me that $15 million the other day, man. I really appreciated it. I'll pay it back.
Let's have a campaign for Blashill.
Social media, it's an interesting place. Let's put it that way. All right. So I think overall, though, Brayden Point gets an A minus from all three of our grades if you average them out, or if you want to go the B plus route. Still a very good grade for Brayden Point and well deserved. I can tell you one place that I can guarantee you, though, gets an A plus every single time, and that's none other than the amazing shop.rblrsports.com, where you can go and check it out and check out the awesome team-inspired merch. Lightning, Rays, Bucks, Rowdies, you name it, we've got it. Head over there again to shop.rblrsports.com, and you can use code BOLTS to get 10% off of your order. Links, as always, are in the description, so go check it out. Pick up yourself some team-inspired merch as we await this offseason and get set for next year.
A+ transition.
Appreciate it, Matt. Yeah. All right, going to our next player. Let's go. We're going to save the big signing, I think, for last and get everybody waiting for that one. I know most people are probably tuning in for, but let's go with Erik Cernak for our next one. I think Cernak's going to be an interesting one, and I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say because Cernak.
I'm curious to hear what Joe has to say.
Cernak, who signed a long extension with the Lightning, he's one of the big core pieces for the defense for the Bolts, but it feels like he was hurt a lot this year. Although, believe it or not, he played 69 total games, so pretty average for what he does. He still has yet to play a full season, by the way. He's never been able to do that, but Cernak felt like he got hurt a lot, finishes with 2 goals, 11 assists, and 13 points in a +5, which +5 may not seem that great, but when you look at it as a whole with the defensive problems the Lightning did have this year, maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. Biggest thing that I note from his stat line, by the way, is he had 63 penalty minutes this year, which is by far the highest. I shouldn't say by far, but it is the highest of his career. So Cernak taking maybe one too many penalties than we would have liked. But Matt, you want to start us off with your thoughts on Erik Cernak this year?
Yeah, I'll go. We'll save the best for last with Joe. No, I mean it sucks because I've been a Cernak defender for a while, and it seems like everybody's kind of split on him. I know Joe's not his biggest fan. I know Michael is really not his biggest fan either. And it took me a while when he first came into the lineup to really come around to him. But he was stellar, for the last, couple of years. He was one of the best, defensive defensemen in the league. It really helps being paired with Ryan McDonough for, the cup runs and all that. But it seemed like he took a step back this year. Didn't really have the same legs. I didn't see him, driving the net. I know it's kind of weird for a defensive defenseman to drive the net, but it seemed like in the last couple of years, he'd be coming up the right side, the right wing, take the puck around behind the goalie and find somebody else. He's not very mobile, but it seemed like he used to do that a lot. And it just seemed like he really was trying to play that stay-at-home style. He really is the number one guy when it comes to defense now on the team. And I still do agree that he's probably the best defenseman, speaking strictly defense, on the team, but the bar's not very high. This year the bar's not very high. Let's be real. I would have liked to see more out of him offense-wise. Not really. He's not known for his offense. He's never really going to be, expected to produce a lot of offense. But 2 goals, you'd like to see, somewhere in maybe that 5 range or something, maybe 15 assists, something like that. But again, it seemed like he was just, a step slow this year, took a step back, but still not a bad player at all. He was, he's crucial in a lot of moments. I think, with every defenseman, they get blasted because their worst moments, end up turning into goals or quality chances for the other team. It's really hard to kind of pick out the good in a defensive defenseman. A lot of the good plays that they do make are so unnoticed. It takes a really keen eye to notice the good plays, the good pokes, the good body positioning, the good, hits that he makes. He's still an extremely physical presence, but, no real major jaw-dropping open ice hits, big hits against the board, but he does use his body to separate people from the puck. So again, still a very quality defenseman, but that price tag is looking a little steep now, and the term we signed him to is looking even a little bit worse than that as well. So a very divisive player. Some people love him, some people hate him. I'm somewhere in the middle. I still really do love Erik Cernak. He's done so much for this team. Some people might hate to say it, but he's still part of this core. So again, just a bit of a weird season from Cernak, but doesn't mean he's a bad player whatsoever.
Yeah, you brought up a ton of good points, and
I rambled.
No, but I mean, you really did bring up certain things that I actually struggled with when kind of prepping for this one, and one of them is that by the numbers, Cernak didn't do that poorly for the team. He had a solid. He was the second. I think he had the second most number of. He had the most blocked shots of his career this season. I think it was like 109. Something to that note. That's a lot of damage that it takes to your body. He had the second highest number of hits on the team. Only Tanner Jeannot, who did play 14 games fewer, but when he forechecks, he finishes his guys. So he had a lot of hits. He played physical. Unfortunately for Cernak, we've seen that this season was actually his second best season in terms of games played. Last year he played 1 additional game for the regular season. So even though everyone thinks of him as being really hard-nosed, he's relatively brittle. And we're starting to hear more and more that there's rumors and musings that when he's not at 100%, he doesn't want to play the game. What that does is if he's sitting out, sorry, my dogs are gonna go off as there's someone walking outside right now. But when he misses games, what that does is it just puts more stress on the rest of the defensemen because they have to find a way to eat those minutes, whether it's calling somebody up or running your lines differently. So you have like 7 defensemen It really does hurt the team with the amount of games that he plays, one way or another. It's gonna add stress to the other guys when he's missing games. He's a right-handed shot. That's something that is really coveted by the Lightning. So he's hard to replace. So you have to start to ask. By the eye test, I say he didn't have a great season. By the numbers, he was +5. He's not somebody that is perfect. And like you said, when a defenseman makes a mistake, you notice it a lot more because it typically ends up in a goal. How much of that may have been also coaching, where he's trying to play in a system that's new to him, unfamiliar, making adjustments, which makes things significantly more difficult on the players themselves. So I had a really tough time evaluating this one. I don't know if Tampa's ready to get rid of Eric Cernak, because who are you going to replace him with? I was pretty anti-Cernak this whole season, blaming a lot of things on him being a little bit slower, him being injured often is what I'll just say. The offensive upside has never been there for him. His top season was 16 points. He had 13 this season. I mean, he's pretty much par for the course with points. That's not what you have him for, though. He's not your puck-moving defenseman. He's not somebody setting up on the power play. He's there to be hard-nosed, clear the difficult guys like Matthew Tkachuk out from the front of the net, get into some scrums, take a few penalties when needed to show that you have a physical presence there, and you're going to pay a price if you're going to get near Vasilevsky. This was a really tough one because I was so ready to just blow him up on the call, but the numbers speak differently, so you have to kind of reevaluate the position a little bit and maybe dig in a bit deeper. What do you think, Jake?
Well, listen, you guys are right in saying that Cernak is a very divisive player. A lot of people are not big fans of him, including our friend Greg Hall, by the way, who says that Blashill should take Cernak with him to San Jose.
I like Greg.
I am not as far against Cernak as maybe some other people are. Did he have the best year this year? No, I don't think so. And Joe, I 100% agree with you that I think when it comes to his injuries, I think that's his biggest downside, is because he is a defensive defenseman, and the Lightning do not have a lot of those tough defensive defenseman guys, and you need them to help out, especially in a tough defensive system. And then the big thing you said, Joe, was he's a right-handed defenseman, and there's just not a lot of those in the league, period. So let alone in the Lightning system. So he's a tough guy to replace. Again, I don't think it was his best year overall, but you look at the stats, and over the last couple of years, his numbers have basically been the same year in and year out. So you could say he's consistent at the very least. So, I mean, and again, I've never been as down on Cernak as some other people have been. His injuries are definitely the biggest issue for him. But when he plays at the level we know he can play, I think he's a very solid defensive defenseman. And I just hope that he can improve over the next couple of years and get back to that high level when he first joined the Lightning, because then I think, they got something there. That's what they signed him long-term for.
Quick little piece of trivia before we get into the grades. I think I've brought this up before, but do you guys know how we acquired Eric Cernak?
I don't remember off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
So I'll tell you, he wasn't a draft pick. He was involved in a trade. Joe, do you want to take a crack at it?
I have his career stats up, and so I kind of was cheating, and but it's only showing the NHL stats. So it's not showing a previous team that he played for, because
I don't think he ever played for that team. So
right. So I don't know.
He was involved in the Ben Bishop trade to Los Angeles. I think we acquired Peter Budaj and Eric Cernak for Ben Bishop, and I don't even know if Bishop played, a season after that in LA, but still a tiny bit of
games, very little.
Mm-hmm. It sounds weird to see Bish in a Kings uniform, but yeah, he was Eric Cernak. He wasn't even a draft pick at that point. So I just always thought that was crazy. He was kind of a throw-in in the deal. I know he was a second-round pick or a third-round pick, I want to say, but still kind of a throw-in in the deal. We got a replacement backup goalie in Peter Budaj. But I always love that little piece of trivia. Where did Cernak come from? Oh, the Ben Bishop trade.
Can I tangent us just for another quick moment too? And
Please.
that's that you mentioned how weird it would be to see Bishop and King's gear. So everyone knows that Vinny LeCavier is still active in the area, and he coaches kids teams. He once put his the kids practice at like 6 o'clock. I had a 7 o'clock game. He put his bag in the wrong locker room. It was in our team locker room. So when he went to grab his bag, he had to come in with all the guys that are already there and grab his stuff. But he still had his King's gloves, which is what he was using. And to see his King's gloves with LeCavier on the cuff of them, it looked really, really out of place because it was full on the black and the silver that he had going.
That's interesting. That is kind of weird.
Looks out of place.
Yeah.
The Lightning need a player that stays with the Lightning for the entirety of their career. But anyway, let's go to player grades for Erik Cernak. Anybody want to jump on that? Because this is a tough one. I think this is a tough one. Anybody got a grade ready to go? Or do you guys want me to start it off again?
I do. I'm critically torn. I'm giving for basically like a top 4 defenseman sitting on the right-hand side, an average grade. Your average one's going to be a C. I'm actually giving Cernak a B-. I think after reevaluating everything, the numbers, I'm dropping him points for missing games. I'm dropping him points for not having that stellar of a season. But I think that, I don't know if Jake, I think you're the one that mentioned the word consistency with his points. You pretty much got exactly what you expect out of him. And that goes a long way when you're trying to build a team. So B-.
I had my grade, and then I kind of forgot that we're not taking playoffs into account. If we were, he was going to be in the C range, C or C+, but I'm going to have to go with Joe here in that B-. Again, a lot to be desired from him, but it doesn't mean he had a bad season, at all. Again, one of the, I'll use the word again, most consistent defensemen we had on this team. If we did take playoffs into account, I thought he had a really rough first round series against Florida.
Well, this might be a first, guys. I can't believe it, but we're all on the same page. I also had B- for Erik Cernak. I think if he's on any other team, I think he drops a little bit lower, but because he is one of our more consistent defensemen and one of the few defensive defensemen that we have, he has to stay in that B range for me. But it's not a nice B-. It's like, all right, you did what you needed to do. Here's your B- kind of grade. But look at that, all 3 of us.
Oh, we should all hug.
So I know we're kind of crunching time here. We still got somebody else to get to, but long shot. Is there an Erik Cernak moment we like from this season?
When he played?
There we go. That's good enough for me.
He played 69 games. It wasn't even like he was
Nice.
Out that much, but it feels like a lot more when he's always constantly one time I did make a meme of him. I photoshopped his face I just looked up an image of a bubble wrapped person and I photoshopped his face on top of it because it feels like he gets hurt all the time. And we cannot have that happen. All right, well, there you go. B- for Erik Cernak. Let's get to the player that I'm most excited to talk about for today because he just signed a new contract. And I feel bad for Mitchell Chaffee because when the news was first announced, everybody, all the comments were just, that's not Steven Stamkos. That's not Stammer. Where's Stammer? But Mitchell Chaffee signs a 2-year contract with the Tampa Bay Lightning at an AAV of $800,000, which is a fantastic contract. I absolutely love this signing for the Lightning. I thought Chaffee was great this year. He played in 30 games for the Lightning, 4 goals, 3 assists for 7 points, and was a +2. Chaffee was that hard-working type of player, that Yanni Gourde-esque. I know Gourde needs to be put into the Lightning Hall of Fame or something because I always use his name to describe other players. That's how much
we're all guilty of it.
Big role he played for the Lightning in that type of situation. But he was that type of player, the hard worker. And he did have some offensive upside. I think he was one of the better players for the Lightning in the playoffs. And even though he wasn't able to score any goals in the postseason, but I was really happy with Mitchell Chaffee's season, and I thought he did very well for the Bolts. And I love that we can get him at $800,000 for the next 2 years, and that's going to be a huge help for the Bolts because I think he'll be a consistent player in their lineup.
Well, I mean that is the big thing is that number 800,000, pretty much an entry level contract, but at the same rate, he was in there replacing somebody that was I believe $2 million a year with Connor Sherry. He was taking his spot on the ice, so somebody that you're going to be paying significantly less, that is arguably contributing more, and he's there's something fun about the guy, right? I mean, he's somebody that brings energy, intensity. You know, maybe it's getting a little cliche to give someone a Gord-like label, but you know, that's something that Gord always had, right? Like he brought an X factor, and that's something that, you know, we didn't really get to see out of Sherry, and that's pretty much who he directly was replacing. Sherry would be out, Chaffee would be in, and that says a lot because Sherry's a very veteran guy, and Chaffee isn't at all. So he only played
30
and have stats 2 games for the Wild 2 years ago. And after that, it was just in the NHL, you know, playing for the Lightning. So, I mean, he took huge strides in his game. Hell, his second game that he played, he got his for the Lightning. He got his first NHL goal and assist. He had a 2-point game in his second game. I mean, bringing those intangibles is always a really important part when you're building out your bottom 6.
Yeah, I agree. I really, really love this signing. He was a guy that I really wanted to bring back, and at $800,000, I mean, that's really nothing. He's not particularly a young guy. I want to say he's in his, you know, upper 20s or something. Maybe let's say 27, 28 maybe. But
he's 26.
Again, 26, okay, I'll take it. But I think he has the potential to be an NHL regular, a solid third line guy. And you guys both threw the name Gord out there, and you know it might be coming a little cliche. I'll still use it if there's, you know, anybody that slightly resembles how Yanni Gord played. He's such a cult hero here. But the first name that I came to draw a comparison to was Ross Colton, who kind of seems like we've forgot about a little bit. And I think Ross Colton, he was a super underrated player. He's a clutch player, that's for darn sure. And just the
He's
way
currently a golfer, right?
Sorry,
Eureka.
So was Mitchell Chaffee.
Yeah.
Fair.
That was good. That was good. Hey, Mitchell Chaffee's a little bit of a richer golfer now. Maybe not richer than Ross Colton, but me. But again, just the way that Chaffee does play, it seemed like it was he literally was fighting for his job. He was playing like it was going to be his last game in the NHL every game. I didn't see him taking many shifts off. And despite, you know, the buzzsaw style heavy forechecking that Yanni Gord brought, I wouldn't say he was an overly physical guy. Like he would get into physical battles, but he wasn't much of a hitter like Ross Colton was. Again, for being a bit of a smaller guy, he would use his body a lot to, you know, separate, you know, a defenseman from a puck or something like that. And I see a lot of that from Mitchell Chaffee, and he has a bit of an edge to him. You know, he took, you know, a couple of, I think like 2 boarding penalties or something, you know, in a span of a couple of games. Like he really does bring, you know, pack a punch for being in a bit of a compact body. I really like the way he plays. I can see him being, you know, around a 15 goal scorer, 30-point kind of guy. You know, if he gets a full season or most of a season under his belt, that would be fantastic. Again, it just seems like
he played at UMass, and he was almost a point per game guy playing for him.
Oh, wow. Again, like what I was going back to, it seemed like he was literally playing for his job. Like he was playing his last game every single game. Didn't notice him a whole lot in the playoffs, but these playoffs were really weird. We got matched up against, you know, a powerhouse team. You can't really, you know, take that into Jake. Let's call a spade a spade. Long story short, Mitchell Chaffee is a very, very welcome addition back on this Lightning team. I think he has a permanent role at least this year if he can, you know, bring what he brought for us last year.
in order to be called a powerhouse team, you got to win a Stanley Cup, which Florida State has not done. But anyway, I'm going to digress before I get off topic too much. You know what's funny, Matt? I think, by the way, your comparison to Ross Colton, I think is a fantastic one. I think that's a really good comparison
Thank you.
for Chaffee. But you know what's funny? You know who I used to compare Ross Colton to? Johnny Gord. Where you kind of go to are those kind of players. But I do like the Ross Colton comparison. And yeah, listen, the biggest knock for me against him was just I think would like to see a little more offense out of him, because I felt like there were a lot of times where he was like so close to scoring goals but couldn't just quite have that the finishing stat. I think is the advanced analytics community throws around out there. I don't know what his number was for finishing percentage, but there were just sometimes I feel like he couldn't quite get it done, and he could just increase that a little bit. Maybe that'll come with a full season where he's consistently in the lineup, not coming up late like he did this year. Then that's great. And especially, again, at that 800K mark, if Chaffee can get anywhere near, heck, not even 30, like 20 points. I mean, that's fantastic at that number, especially in that bottom six, which the Lightning needed it and didn't really have it this year. So, all right, let's go with player grades. I'll start us off this time, guys. For Mitchell Chaffee, I'm going to go with a B+. I think Chaffee, it's harder to grade guys who didn't play a full season. I think Chaffee is a very hardworking player. I love all that about him. I would like to see a little bit more consistency when it comes to the scoring. Again, that's not all against him, because he did come into late into the Bolt system and did not play the full year, but there were just a couple of times where I think he could have been a little bit better offensively. But other than that, I love everything that Chaffee did. So just misses the A mark for me, but I give him a very solid B+.
I'm going next. Everything Jake just said, everything. Like literally everything.
B+?
Agree again?
Yeah, no, literally everything. And I don't, I don't like everything being, the exact same, but it's the exact same. I agree 100% on all of it. The grade, look at Jake's a little like puffing his chest right now. Look at him.
I'm excited. I'm like, hey, all right.
No, I mean you nailed it. I like the grade. I liked your reasoning, and that's the exact same thing. You took the words out of my mouth. B+.
I'm gonna go with just a solid B. I don't know if he did a lot to warrant a B+. My heart is telling me A. Again, I think I said it, a couple weeks ago, during the season. I'm starting the Mitchell Chaffee fan club. I really, really like this guy. It just seems like he knows how to play the game. He's just a meat and potatoes kind of guy. He's, nothing, not a superstar or anything, but he can be a valuable depth piece. Like we were talking about Mikey Asamont last week, how he's just kind of a good guy, a guy that everybody can root for. He knows his place and he plays his role really well. It's just a little unfair, or not unfair, but it's just hard to give a guy a grade who only played 30 games this year. Is that what it was? 30? And not even due to injury or anything, but just, him filling in for Connor Sherry or Tanner Janot being out. So it's just a little unfair, but not taking anything away from him. There wasn't anything that he did wrong, but maybe like you were saying, Jake, there could be a little bit more to give. I think his ceiling is a good bit higher than what we saw this year. So, hopefully this time next year, we could be giving him an A. That'd be awesome.
We got a comment over here on YouTube that I want to bring up. Beverly agrees with us here, saying Chaffee. I can't speak. Chaffee, another diamond in the rough, like Hagel and Easymont, speedy and gritty. Two great words to describe him. Absolutely. Love the signing. Cernak, all we can do is hope. You see a lot of people very against Cernak. Her grades for all three, by the way, point A, Cernak C, and for Chaffee a B. I think those are solid grades for all three of those guys.
Yeah.
I 100%.
Like where your head's at, Beverly.
Yep, absolutely.
Also, shout out to Beverly. She was with us last week as well, leaving some comments. So thank you for returning, Beverly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if you are returning, don't forget that like and subscribe button. If you're hanging out with us, we really do appreciate it. It helps us out. And that way you can get notified when we do go live for these fun shows and you don't miss out on any future episodes as well. So, all right, well, those are our three grades for this week's episode. I'm excited for the future for the Lightning when it comes to Mitchell Chaffee. It's a great signing. Hopefully next week we have another signing to talk about. It's another forward. There's still a lot to go. You got Anthony Duclair, still a UFA. Steven Stamkos, obviously the big name. So it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out.
Darren Radish, 8-year deal on the horizon.
Hey, before we close out, since we're live, who you guys got for tonight?
Oh, for Oil versus Canucks?
We got a game. We got a game 7.
Before Besser was out, I was saying Oilers by 2. Now I'm going to say Oilers by 3. So I do have the Oilers, only to get swept by Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way, and I think that Vancouver, now that they're missing Besser, are going to step up for at least a game, and that the Besser injury really kind of resonates with Tampa fans, I'm sure, because isn't that exactly what happened with Stamkos? He had like a blood clot instead of in his leg, it was in his lung for Stamkos, or it was somewhere up high. So I hope he gets better. He's out for the rest of the season, obviously, but I got Vancouver overcoming Edmonton.
I'm very conflicted for this game because first and foremost, I'll say this: gamble responsibly. I may or may not have had Vancouver in a parlay the other day, and they blew it, and I was very upset about it because it was the last one that I needed. Vancouver is at home, but these are two really good teams. I'm going with Vancouver though, because until Edmonton proves me wrong and showing that they can get further into the Stanley Cup playoffs, I just don't trust them to close it out, especially with I know will be a fired up Vancouver crowd. So I'm going with the Canucks to take it off there. So guys, I think that's going to do it for us in this episode. Thank you so much all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe or follow us on social media at RBR Lightning, at RBLR Sports, so you don't miss out on future episodes just like this one. That'll do it for us in this episode. Talk to you guys next time. Cheers.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.